The wind screamed across the ice fields a-crying. 12 like a banshee mourning a lost world. Snow scoured the metallic walls of the observation dome where Dr. Alara Voss stood, her breath a slow ghost in the frigid air. The temperature outside hovered near minus 90 degrees Celsius, and even the reinforced thermal shielding of her suit couldn't erase the bite of the cold entirely. She stared into the blizzard, listening to the low hum of the solar generator beneath her feet, and thought, not for the first time, that humans had no business being this far from Earth. The research mission had been voluntary, the funding sparse, but Alara hadn't cared. There was something poetic about studying microbial extremophiles on a planet untouched by politics or pollution. Something clean. She had built the station herself, pieced together out of prefabricated modules and desperation. After 18 months, the isolation had worn her raw, but the silence, at times, felt more honest than conversation. Then the sky cracked open. It was not thunder. It was not a storm. It was a deep, resonant pulse, like the cosmos exhaling. Alara barely made it to the outer window in time to witness a rippling shimmer of space terror above the northern ice shelf. A sleek, angular vessel, completely unlike any human design, emerged from the rupture. No flames, no sonic boom. It simply arrived as if it had always belonged. She blinked. For a long moment, she did nothing. Then the radio on her belt chirped. No signal. Just a tone, low and steady. It pierced her skull like a tuning fork made of thought. Words followed, translated and yet not, the language precise yet drenched in a strange elegance. We request shelter. By the time she reached the outer landing field, the ship had unfolded itself into a structure of gleaming bone and alloy. From it emerged a single figure, tall, skeletal, encased in a bioorganic exosuit that shimmered with moisture and frost. Its eyes, if they were eyes, glowed with a gentle bioluminescent blue. The creature stood still until she raised her hand. Then it mimicked the gesture. "You're intelligent," she said aloud, though the words felt ridiculous. "Of course you are." The creature tilted its head. The translator module on Alara's suit lit up. "I am Professor Viarchiel of the Hive Mind Scholarium. Your planet has been cataloged. This outpost is deemed insufficient. Shelter must be constructed." Alara blinked. "Wait, insufficient? What are you talking about? This is a research station, not a hotel." The alien cocked its head again. It looked down at the frozen soil, back up at her dome, and then turned back to her. "This structure is unfit for academic habitation. Others will arrive, build suitable quarters, or evacuation protocols will be initiated." The message wasn't hostile. There was no threat in its tone. It was simply factual, like an equation. You can't just show up here and demand accommodations like at a planetary Airbnb. She laughed once, a sharp breath in the cold. "I built this place with my hands. My tech, my power grid, and it's kept me alive just fine." VRRKL stepped forward. His long fingers gestured toward the sky. A subtle hum began behind him. An approaching signal, faint but growing. Others come. Purpose, knowledge integration. Environmental expectations differ. Structure must support interdisciplinary convergence. You will construct. Alara crossed her arms. "And if I don't?" The pause that followed was heavy, but not threatening, just full of unspoken consequence. "Then you will no longer be here." She opened her mouth, then closed it. This was a fight she could win through logic or defiance. Crying, 12 had just become an interstellar academic hub, and she was suddenly its reluctant landlord. Later, in the warmth of her cabin, she stared into her tea and considered her options. None of them were great. Sharing the station was never part of the mission, but being kicked off the planet. By what? Force? Technology she didn't understand. Was even worse. Besides, a part of her, the scientist, was electrified. A chance to coexist, collaborate, understand. The door hissed open behind her. She turned. VRRKL stood just outside, snow steaming off his frame. In his clawed hand, he held a cup, one of hers. She hadn't seen him take it. "You don't drink," she said. half amused. Observation of ritual accelerates rapport. This is comfort vessel. Ilera stifled a laugh. It's a mug. Mug. VRRKL echoed, committing the word to memory. They stood there, in silence broken only by the sound of the storm and the soft hum of solar batteries charging beneath the floor. Finally, she sighed. All right, Professor. You want shelter? I'll build it, but it'll be on my terms. Human design. Sustainable. Efficient. Comfortable. No hive pods or organic walls that ooze or whatever the hell your species likes. Agreement is logged. VRKL stepped back. Construction must be complete before solstice phase. Incoming scholars require immediate shelter. How many? 12. Ilera groaned. Great. 12 aliens in need of housing. I didn't even finish fixing the hydroponics. Begin. And with that, he turned and vanished into the snow. Ilera sat down, took a long sip from her mug, and muttered, This is going to be a weird winter. She didn't yet know that by the end of it, she'd redefined comfort for an entire civilization. But as the power meter ticked upward, the storm began to die, and the cabin's walls glowed warm against the blue frost outside. She felt, however faintly, the first trace of possibility. The snow had barely melted off Virakel's footprints before Lara began sketching designs on her tablet, gloved fingers jittering from caffeine and nerves. The alien professor hadn't returned since issuing his final directive, but she felt his presence like a pressure in the atmosphere. 12 more of them, she thought. 12 aliens with unknowable needs and academic egos bigger than frozen moons. Her stylus moved swiftly, tracing the bones of what she envisioned. A hybrid habitat. Not sterile like a research outpost. Not damp and spiny like whatever Virgel's kind considered architecture. A cabin, yes, but intelligent. Warm. Modular. Self-regulating. She would build it not only to survive Cryan, 12, but to assert what humanity brought to the interstellar table. Resilience, elegance, and maybe even a little grace. Outside, the cold was constant, but the sky had cleared. The twin suns, dim bluish things, filtered through the clouds just enough to feed her solar panels. She checked the power grid. 92% charge, a rare surplus. She would need every bit of it. Within hours, she began the ground preparations, assisted only by her multipurpose rover, Grieve. Grieve was slow and sarcastic, a relic from an old mining mission she had refitted for construction. He rumbled skeptically as she unloaded steel composites and heat-treated glass from storage. You're going to host aliens in this? Grieve buzzed through his ancient speaker. Wouldn't a nice cave suffice? They don't want a cave, Ilera muttered. They want a cathedral. I'm giving them a cathedral with Wi-Fi. The terrain proved uncooperative. Beneath the snow, Cryan 12's crust was uneven and veined with brittle rock that fractured under pressure. She laid the foundation with geofoam panels to level the surface, insulating it from the permafrost. Days bled together in the pale light, and her logs filled with muttered swears, measurements, and occasional heated debates with Grieve. VRRKL returned once during this phase, silently observing from a nearby ridge. He said nothing, only watched as Ilera struggled to secure a wind shear barrier around the frame. You know, she called out, adjusting her thermal mask. A little help wouldn't hurt. The alien tilted his head. Your process is inefficient but instructive. We learn by your struggle. She shot him a look. Well, I learned by not freezing to death. Consider this a masterclass in human stubbornness. He didn't reply, but Ilera could have sworn the ambient light in his visor pulsed brighter, like amusement. He disappeared shortly after, leaving no footprints in his wake. By the end of the second week, the skeleton of the structure stood. Triangular, high-roofed, a fusion of alpine design and insulated science station. She installed the solar array on the roof, its panels angled precisely to catch both suns at their best arc. The wiring was delicate work, requiring precision gloves and a good deal of muttered praying. When she finally switched the system on, the internal heaters kicked in with a gentle hum. Warmth seeped into the air like a sigh of relief. Inside, she divided the space into modular rooms. Shared sleeping pod with temperature controls, a central lounge, an interface console that merged your systems with the alien data translator VRKL had provided. The cabin wasn't luxurious by Earth standards, but on Cryon 12, it was a palace. And then came the details. Mugs. She printed 12. Black ceramic with integrated hand warmers. Silly? Maybe. But she wanted them to feel something, an idea of comfort, however foreign. She placed them in the central area beside a freshly assembled beverage station that could synthesize water, brew infusions, and even, if coaxed correctly, replicate a passable hot chocolate. She was applying the finishing sealant to the outer wall when VRKL arrived again. This time, he entered without ceremony, ducking slightly to fit through the door. He looked around, scanning each component with a slow, deliberate gaze. When he stopped before the drink station, he reached out and touched the rim of a mug. His hand lingered. This is contextual? Symbolic? It's a thing we do, Ilera said, brushing sealant from her gloves. Holding warmth. Sharing it. It says we're not enemies. Conflict resolution through temperature ritual. Primitive. Effective. She shrugged. You get it then. I am attempting to. VRRKL examined the layout in silence, then turned toward her. Your integration of solar input exceeds expectation. The structure emits balance. Ilera raised a brow. Was that a compliment? It is a data-positive assessment. Close enough. He lingered a moment longer before approaching the central console. The translator flickered to life, its projection displaying a rotating symbol she hadn't seen before. The scholars will arrive in 2 solar cycles. Some are not tolerant of cold or delay. Emotional variance among our cast is inconsistent. Ilera nodded. Noted. I'll finish the last module tonight. There's time. However, be aware. One among them, Tlur, is resistant to cross-species cohabitation. Great. A xenophobe in my guest list. He will challenge your design. He may attempt to alter the structure. Ilera crossed her arms. Then he'll have to deal with my protocols. This is a human build. I've adapted enough. VRRKL regarded her unreadable. Your resistance resembles stubbornness. Your stubbornness resembles art. She laughed. You say that like it's a bad thing. I say it like it is a puzzle. One I find engaging. He left again without another word, slipping into the dim blue haze that always followed Cryon's nightfall. Ilera stood for a while on the threshold, watching the frost-formed patterns along the new walls. Inside, the lights pulsed gently. The heater buzzed. The mugs waited on their shelf like sentinels. It was ready. She spent that night going over every system, testing seals, recalibrating the water synthesizer, and configuring a playlist of ambient earth sounds, rivers, wind and leaves, low ocean tides. If aliens were going to live here, they might as well get used to the hum of a world filled with life, even if it was synthetic. As the second solar cycle approached, Ilera sat cross-legged in the lounge, sipping from her own mug, eyes closed. Her muscles ached, her brain throbbed with fatigue, but a quiet satisfaction settled into her bones. She had built something that could survive this world and maybe, just maybe, teach another one what it meant to live in it. Outside, the sky shimmered again. A pulse, a ripple. They were coming. The sky peeled open like a second eyelid blinking to reveal the void beyond. The portal shimmered with unnatural grace. Space-time curving inward, a lens through which impossibility arrived without sound or hesitation. One by one, the newcomers descended. Ilera stood at the edge of the platform she cleared for landing, her breath fogging in the air, posture taut with anticipation. They were not what she expected. Each figure that emerged bore the hallmarks of VRKL's species: elongated limbs, segmented bodies, translucent armor that refracted the weak sunlight like liquid crystal. But there was variance. One was draped in rippling robes that shifted color with movement. Another had metallic crests down its spine, sparking faintly with violet static. A smaller figure, perhaps adolescent, moved erratically, antennae twitching at each new scent and sound. Tlur came last. He was taller than VRKL, leaner, his plating a darker hue that absorbed rather than reflected light. His face, such as it could be called, remained partially concealed by a veil of biofilaments. But Alara felt the weight of his stare the moment he turned toward her. She did not speak first. VRRKL stepped forward to greet them, arms extended in a ritual Alara was beginning to recognize, an unspoken exchange of status, memory, intention. Their communication was fast, almost fluid. She caught fragments through the translator. Environmental parameters within survivable range, sensory accommodations, architectural deviation from core schema, and then Tlur's voice, low and sharper than the others. This construction is crude, primitive form, insufficient for neural convergence. Alara's jaw clenched. She stepped forward. It's not crude. It's practical. And I built it to keep you alive. The translator relayed her words. The group fell still. Even the adolescents twitching paused. Tlur regarded her, taking in the thermal jacket, the grit on her boots, the way her breath crystallized in the air. Your presence here is anomalous. Your craft, inelegant. Your methods, linear. And yet, Alara replied, her voice steady, you're standing here, breathing comfortably, thanks to that so-called inelegance. Tlur turned, stepping past her into the shelter, without invitation. His clawed feet made no sound on the metal floor. One by one, the others followed, filling the space with clicks, hums, and the odd musical resonance of their language spoken in low tones. Alara trailed behind, tension riding her spine like a second skeleton. VRRKO walked beside her, expression unreadable. Tlur's not impressed, she muttered. He was not meant to be. VRRKO paused before the entryway. He believes the mind expands best in discomfort. He will test this space. He will test you. Alara huffed. Good. I need a challenge. Inside, the cabin had taken on a new energy. The aliens moved methodically, inspecting each section. Some with scanners, others by touch or vibration. The adolescent discovered the drink station first, mimicking Varardel's earlier gesture with awkward enthusiasm. It lifted a mug, sniffed the contents, and chirped. Others followed suit. The room began to warm with their combined body heat and the faint traces of bioluminescence each carried in their suits. It felt surreal, like hosting a very bizarre faculty dinner. Tlur stood in the center, silent. Then he stepped toward the console and, with a graceful motion, extended a neural tendril. The translator shimmered with contact, lights blinking rapidly. Alara moved quickly. Hey! That interface is integrated into my power grid. You start meddling. Observation, not interference. VRRKL said, placing a hand, if it could be called that, on her arm. He is gauging intent. Tlur withdrew the tendril slowly. Architecture holds memory. Purpose is embedded in structure. Yours sings of survival, not scholarship. Alara folded her arms. Survival is the foundation of scholarship. You can't think if you're frozen solid. Comfort dulls the edge of inquiry. Discomfort kills the inquirer. The room fell quiet again. The adolescent chirped once, then returned to its mug. The tension between Alara and Tlur hung, suspended in the recycled air. VRRL's voice broke the silence. Coexistence requires reframing. She is not one of us, yet she has created a viable space for convergence. Her methods may lack complexity, but her intent does not. Tlur said nothing. Instead, he turned and walked toward one of the sleep modules, opening it with a hiss of pressurized air. He stepped inside, examined the interior, then shut it again without comment. Alara sighed, rubbing her temples. I didn't sign up for alien peer review. You are not being reviewed. Alara Voss. You're being studied. Oh, fantastic. That's much better. The first cycle passed in a blur. The scholars moved through the structure like currents of data, occupying spaces, asking questions, linking into the local network through neural ports Alara had not realized existed until they activated them. Her console lit up with shared files, maps of language routes, interstellar cultural matrices, theoretical models of collective intelligence. They shared freely, as if the act of teaching were a ritual, and Alara, against all odds, became a part of it. She answered questions, described her power grid in detail, explained Earth materials, Human problem-solving, the limitations of muscle and emotion. They listened. Some replicated miniature models of her construction methods. One offered to help optimize the thermal flow of the sleeping pods by adjusting their shape based on the mathematics of fractal growth patterns in alien coral. Only Tlur remained aloof. He rarely spoke to her directly. He often wandered the perimeter of the cabin, sometimes stepping outside for hours into the cold, leaving behind trails of frost that melted slowly in his absence. But he never tampered, never sabotaged. His silence was louder than dissent. One evening, Ilera found him in the lounge, staring at the window. The twin suns were dipping behind Cryon's jagged hills, casting long shadows across the ice. "Problem?" she asked, approaching with cautious curiosity. He didn't turn. "This world is quiet. Your kind builds where it should listen. We built here because no one else was, and because listening requires shelter first. Your shelter is a fortress. It's a home." He turned then, slowly. The bioluminescence in his eyes dimmed slightly. "It has become something else. That is worth noting." Ilera raised an eyebrow. "Is that the closest I'm getting to an apology?" "You are getting the truth. That is more valuable." The tension between them eased, not resolved, but paused. The quiet became companionable, filled only with the hum of the heater and the distant sound of alien voices trading thoughts in frequencies too high for human ears. Later that night, VRRKL approached her as she reviewed structural diagnostics. "Tlur has begun recording observations of your design. He no longer advocates for dismantling." "Well," Ilera said, sipping from her mug, "maybe my architecture sings after all." "It sings of resilience. That melody resonates." She leaned back, letting that settle. The shelter stood solid against the cold, and within it, 12 minds, plus one human, were beginning to shape a fragile, strange harmony. And deep below the ice, something ancient stirred, sensing the vibration of new voices. The tremor began as a whisper beneath Ilera's feet, subtle, almost imperceptible, a shift in the permafrost so slight it could have been a contraction of the metal beneath her boots. But then the lights flickered. Just once. She was in the diagnostics bay, finishing a recalibration of the solar input converters, when Greaves' voice sputtered over the comm. Ilera? Might want to come up. We've got a situation." Her stomach tightened. She dropped the tools, sprinted to the corridor, and emerged into the lounge where VRRKL and 3 others stood clustered around the console. The air was tight with static. The translator interface pulsed erratically, icons flashing in unfamiliar patterns. "What's going on?" she demanded. A signal, deep resonance, originating from below the ice shelf, directly beneath the structure. Tlur entered a moment later, his antennae angled sharply forward. "You've triggered something." "I didn't do anything," Ilera replied, her voice edged with disbelief. "We've been careful. Every drill point was surface level. Nothing below 2 meters. VRRKL touched the console. The interface shifted, displaying a waveform, deep, rhythmic pulses that spiked at intervals like a heartbeat. A buried frequency. This predates our arrival. Possibly ancient infrastructure. Dormant until now. Tlur stepped closer to the display, examining it with narrowing gaze. "No, not infrastructure. This is language." Ilera blinked. "Language? From what?" The scholar gestured toward the frozen earth beneath them. "From the thing that lives below." Her breath hitched. "You're telling me there's something alive under the ice?" "Dormant, intelligent, possibly sentient." Panic twisted in her gut, but she fought to keep her voice calm. "If we activated it, we need to shut it down. Fast, before it decides we're a threat." "Unlikely. The pattern is not aggressive. It is responsive, as if listening." The adolescent chimed in with a flurry of musical notes. The translator chirped after a delay. "It heard us. It is mimicking VRRKL's inflection." Ilera stared at the waveform. The pulses had changed, now echoing the cadence of VRRKL's voice patterns, but slower, deeper, drawn from the belly of the world. "We need to get outside," she said. "We need a reading from the source." Tlur blocked her path. "That is unwise." If it is communicating, we must observe from a distance. Engagement could provoke. I didn't build this place to be a bunker, Elara snapped. I built it to be a bridge. You wanted a structure for convergence. Well, something's converging. VRRKL gave a slow nod. She is correct. We learn through contact, not avoidance. Reluctantly, Tlur stepped aside. Elara suited up, sealing her thermal layers while Grieve recalibrated exterior sensors to scan beneath the crust. The others watched her from the airlock, a silent constellation of glassy eyes and folded limbs. She stepped into the blinding cold, breath crystallizing instantly. The surface underfoot was uneven, brittle. At the center of the platform, a thin spiral of frost had formed. No wind had made it. The ice itself had swirled upward into a soft ridge like a spiral shell. From its center, the resonance grew stronger. Elara dropped to one knee and placed her gloved palm against it. The world shifted, not visually, not physically, but internally, like a string had been plucked inside her chest. A deep, vibrating note that wasn't heard but felt humming along her bones. Grieve, tell me you're getting this, she murmured. The drone's voice buzzed in her ear. I'm getting something. You just became a beacon, boss. The others emerged from the structure. Carefully, slowly. Tlur remained closest to the door, but VRRKL moved to stand beside her. It is not machine. It is not organic. It is both. It may be artifact, bio-encoded, a remnant. Elara asked, shivering despite the suit, or a guardian. The spiral shifted. Not much, just enough to crack the ice around it. A thin line, like a vein opening, ran toward the cabin. From below came a low thrum, sonorous, resonating with thought, or at least something that wanted to be thought. Elara stood slowly, heart pounding. What do we do? No one answered immediately. Then the adolescent chirped again and walked toward the spiral, fearless, small hands outstretched. Tlur hissed a warning, stepping forward, but VRRKL held up a hand. The moment the young one touched the spiral, the hum stopped. Everything stopped, and then the ice lit up, not melted, glowed. Lines traced from the spiral outward in branching patterns, illuminating the ground like circuitry, each pulse echoing upward toward the cabin itself. Elara turned back to see the structure reacting, the solar panel swiveling slightly, lights shifting hue, the data interface surging with unreadable text. Inside, alarms buzzed. Grieve howled. We've got system integration. Something's in the network. Elara and the others bolted inside. The adolescent stayed where it was, unbothered, watching the line spread like a blooming tree beneath its feet. Back in the command bay, Elara stared at the screen. The console no longer ran on her code. The foreign system had rewritten everything. But it hadn't corrupted it. It had augmented it. The power grid now pulsed with double efficiency. The temperature stabilizers were recalibrated, now accounting for ambient emotion readings from the occupants. The structure was no longer a shelter. It had become alive. Tlur's voice was sharp. This violates containment. We are compromised. No, Elara said quietly. We're being included. VRRKL tilted his head, observing her with a new light behind his lenses. This entity seeks communion. It has made your structure its medium. It chose the cabin, she breathed. It saw what we built and responded. Tlur's antennae curled inward. That is not trust. That is invasion. No, Elara said again. That's invitation. The adolescent re-entered, unharmed, bioluminescence rippling calmly. It chirped twice. The translator flickered. It asked a question. I answered. It wanted to know if we were alone. The scholars were silent. Then VRRKL stepped forward, placing both hands on the console. A surge of light passed through him, up the wall, across the ceiling. The structure answered, adapting its lighting and gravity, shifting minutely in shape. New doorways appeared where there had been none. Panels opened to reveal deep storage chambers, hidden tools, data interfaces not built by Elara's hands. The cabin had become something else. It had become a conduit. And in that moment, Elara understood. The challenge had never been to simply build a shelter, for a group of scholars. The true task had always been to create a space where life could evolve, coexist, collaborate, resonate. She had built it, not alone, not just for humans, but for whoever might answer the question echoing in the dark, are we alone? And the answer, humming beneath her feet, was finally clear. No, not anymore.